Really feels like my dumb chicken just can take on the world. I've had him beat control decks like Blurple or Malicious Mean and Scary. I've had him beat the tempo deck of the, last year or so with the purple steel list. And this week we have the dumb chicken taking on aggro. Hello there, Lorcana lovelies. Like I said, this week's maybe meta, we are still testing out our HeiHei list against the various archetypes that are out there. And this week it is aggro's turn. So instead of playing against dogs, we're going to play against the new aggro deck that I'm excited about, which is Emerald Amethyst. So let's go into our list, and then we will go into some gameplay and see how Dumb Chicken does. All right, we're going to start with the Emerald Amethyst list. And we're going to start with that because that is our aggro deck. It is our quicker deck, so I guess it's going first on our deck analysis, but also because we need to know what we are trying to beat with the HeiHei list. So looking at this list, it is filled with 1-drops. Now, it doesn't have a lot of big lore questers like other aggro decks do, like the Amber Steel or the Amber Emerald dogs, but it does have a lot of really good synergies. This deck works really well with itself, where you can play out multiple things a turn, and that Enigmatic Ink Caster really is like a make it or break it card. It is a card that says if you've played 2 cards this turn, so that's not 2 characters, that's just 2 cards, and it counts itself. So if you've played 2 cards this turn, you can exert it to gain a lore. It costs no ink, it costs nothing like that, just play 2 cards. So on turn 3, you play that and a 1-drop, you've played 2 cards, you can gain a lore. And if you have 2 or 3 of them out, which is kind of my happy place, you can gain a whole bunch of lore. This deck does not have the typical problem that aggro does. Aggro typically suffers from card draw. When it runs out of cards, it's kind of done. This deck does have card draw. Now, it's global card draw, which means it's giving its opponents cards as well, but we do have the Amethyst Chromacon and Show Me More for that card draw. So that is what this list looks like. It is a very fun list to play. I will say that when it came down to it, Josh and I both wanted to play HeiHei, so we actually had to roll for it. I don't even know why I bothered rolling for it. Josh always wins dice rolls. So Josh gets to play HeiHei, and I am on the Amber Emerald list. So let's look at the HeiHei list and figure out how exactly we're going to work strategy-wise to beat a really fast deck like this one. So this is our list. It is the same list that I was doing last week, so the HeiHei Maker ones, which is just the big stuff. So this list is filled with some big kind of pressure pieces. Vincenzo, Hades, Sir Ector, they're all really, really big pieces that can kind of come out and can just really take over the board, especially since ideally we're playing these big pieces on like turn 4. So turn 1 we play a HeiHei, turn 2 we do maybe nothing or we do visions, and turn 3 we shift HeiHei, and now we have between 7 and 8 ink depending on if we were on the play or on the draw. 7 ink, 8 ink means we can play pretty much anything in our deck. The only thing we can't play is Mufasa if we're at the 7 ink part. But everything, all of the rest of the cards coming down on turn 4 are hugely impactful. Sir Ector, what do you do about a 7/10 that quests for 3 on turn 4? Or Vincenzo that does 3 damage, that can pretty much kill anything on turn 4. Hades gets rid of things, Goliath draws you cards. So this is a great kind of deck for like the big end of the curve and being able to cheat them out early. Aggro, however, is a different beast when it comes to this. This deck really does live with that tempo combo list idea as its opponent, because ideally we want to go a little bit late game because we don't want our opponent to be fast enough that all of a sudden we've lost the game by the time we're comboing off, or if we need to buy an extra turn or 2 to get a couple big threats out. So we're going to play this deck differently against aggro. How we're going to do that differently is if we can push the HeiHei combo and we're on the play, cool, we'll do it. But more importantly, we want to make sure that we're playing cards each turn to be able to challenge into our opponent's threats. So against the purple emerald list, they have a lot of small characters. So we want to be playing things like both of the small HeiHeis to be able to challenge and contest their characters early game. And then, like, ideally, what we're hitting off of the card draw once we put all of our ink into our inkwell is something like a Tinkerbell, because if you think back or rewind back to that other deck list, you'll see that most of that deck list is like 1 to 2 power characters, which means Tinkerbell kind of clears the field on her own. that is kind of the strategy with this deck against aggro. So we don't necessarily want to push super hard for the combo. We want to play something turn 1, turn 2, and turn 3 to be able to challenge our opponent's characters. You really want a Pluto, though. That Enigmatic Inkcaster can win this deck, our opponent's deck of the game here, or my deck in this case, because I'm on aggro this week. And Pluto can just absolutely blunt that. What Pluto says is that, first off, any of your other steel characters, when they banish another character in a challenge, you gain lore off of that, which means that you can start challenging in to their characters. Your characters will stick around because they're super big, and you'll be able to gain lore off of that. But more importantly, Pluto says that when you play another steel character, you can banish chosen item. And we want to do that because cards like Enigmatic Inkcaster can really make our opponent kind of win the game. So we want to get rid of that as quickly as possible. And ideally, Pluto's great against other decks too, because if we think about the other aggro deck that's out there, which is Dogs, the Emerald Chromicon can also make our math really difficult. So we want to be blowing up that if possible as well. So if you look at this deck, the strategy you want to play against aggro is play characters out. Now, we don't have 3 or 4 drops, yes, but if we do get the HeiHei combo, we can play things on turn. We can play our bigger things on turn 4. It's just you don't want to miss your 1 or your 2 drop HeiHeis because you need challengers. Also, dig hard for Pluto because Pluto is a big game changer against decks where that item can win them the game. Let's go into some gameplay. We'll see if I can explain how to play this deck against aggro, and you'll see that it is good against control and tempo, and it is good against aggro as well. So here's the gameplay. All right, going into game 1 here. So going into game 1, we are just finishing up our mulligans. I believe Josh won the dice roll. Yep, so Josh gets to go first there. So he's just going to play a develop. So against aggro, he's really going to want to be able to play out some characters to be able to take out my characters, like this Curse Merfolk that I play. So I really like Curse Merfolk. Curse Merfolk's kind of brutal against HeiHei as well because it makes them discard a card, which means when they do get to the HeiHei shift line, they are 1 card down if they decided to challenge the Curse Merfolk. So I'm going to play out 2, I guess, a character and a fairy ship there. So the fairy ship is a fan favorite of somebody who plays at our store. So hopefully he's happy to see the fairy ship on camera there. And I'm going to quest for 2. So looking at my hand, I have a bunch of uninkables. I should not have played out both of those cards. I should have held one of them to be able to ink this turn because I get stuck with uninkables here, which is just kind of tragic. Josh does get to shift, and since he shifted the HeiHei, it means that he gets to punch into the Curse Merfolk and not have to discard a card. Since shifting into the HeiHei, it is a 1 power, which means that it can take out the Curse Merfolk no problem. And he is going to, he's got no cards left in his hand because he inked them all. So this is kind of a nice thing here with the HeiHei deck going into aggro. Unfortunately, Josh drew Mufasa, which is like the worst thing for him to draw in this moment because he needs to be able to take out my characters to stop me from getting as much advantage here. He draws a Sir Ector, which means, again, nothing to ink for the Mufasa, but he's able to play the Sir Ector, which is going to start to be able to just kind of wreck my field. Looking back at my hand here, I have not really drawn the inkables that I need, but I do have 2 ink casters out now, and I did get to play an action, so I will get to draw gain 2 lore off of those ink casters. 11 lore is awesome for me, and Josh finally gets the inkable to be able to play the Mufasa. So he gets 2 cards back from his inkwell, and he'll be able to, and so looking at his hand, he's got a good amount of cards because I was forced to give him cards there. I'm going to play a Gathering Knowledge and Wisdom, so that will gain me 2 lore, and a Honey Marin, which will also gain me a lore because he's got an exerted character. So my plan here is I just want to race as quickly as I can before Josh gets control, and Josh is at the point where he's going to start getting control. Josh is going to quest with Mufasa after he plays a Pluto, which readies all of his ink again, and he will be able to play something else. Playing a steel character with that Pluto out, like I said, that is great against this particular deck because it can banish those items. So I am now down 1 ink caster. I don't think that would have made the math any better for me, but I was doing the math hoping that I'd be able to keep that on board. So you can see here, Josh was at 2, he's now at 11. This deck can all of a sudden just start to take over because the Mufasa quest for 4 and readies ink. I am going to play an action, play 2 actions, I guess, there, and I'm going to gain lore from the Inkcaster. I got up to 19. If I had an extra ink where I was kind of empty on ink, I might have made a difference, but you can see how good that HeiHei deck can be when it can control the aggro deck and be able to play out characters to punch in, and especially the Pluto to get rid of the Inkcasters. Going on to game 2 here. I am going to be on the play, which is going to be much more preferential for me because that 1 extra turn could make a difference for me to be able to cross that finish line. It's going to be really important in this case for Josh to be able to keep characters that he can challenge my characters with. So I lead with an evasive Pegasus. There's really no evasive in Josh's deck, especially not early, to be able to deal with me. Oh, wait, I guess there's a turn 2 HeiHei. But either way, he doesn't have something on turn 1. He is going to do a develop your brain, and he plays a dock for nothing. So he plays a dock and he doesn't discard his hand because he needs a character and he doesn't have those HeiHeis to punish me with. I am going to try again to race up as quick as I can, playing a Curse Merfolk and an Inkcaster to gain lore with there. Josh finally gets the 1-drop chicken, which is a couple turns too late, but he'll be able to start challenging into my characters here. However, looking at my board state here in Inkcaster to Curse Merfolks, it might be kind of too little too late for Josh to be able to catch up there. He shifts the HeiHei, and he's going to take out a Curse Merfolk. He doesn't have to banish anything now since he, discard anything since he doesn't have anything left in his hand. But going back to me here, again, the name of the game for me is just to sprint, and Josh is not drawing anything super impactful to be able to punish me. So he is going to challenge whatever he can to try to get rid of it as best as possible. However, looking at my board, I've got enough there to be able to quest up after I boost the Flynn, giving him an extra lore. I go to exactly 20. Josh needed to be able to punish my questing early there with some characters which he didn't have. So let's see if the HeiHei deck can get that on game 3. So looking at the mulligans, Josh really needs to be able to mulligan for those early chickens to be able to, again, challenge into my characters. I just want to race as quickly as possible, and that's kind of where we are at there for mulligans. And then we're going to kind of start the game here. So Josh gets to start. He gets his first turn chicken, which is good for him. And I am going to play a Pegasus. I play the Pegasus because he can't challenge it in turn 1, so I'll get the lore off of it, which will be nice. Josh plays a Develop Your Brain, which means I have no evasive chicken to worry about there. He is probably digging for his combo, I would assume, or a Pluto. A Pluto is really impactful for the deck. I'm just going to play a Honey Marin and Quest, and again, the point is for me to race, and Josh needs to race as well, which in this case is going to involve playing the shift chicken to get some big characters out. I just kind of unload my hand. Again, I want to race as quickly as possible, and Josh gets to play a Sir Ector. So that Sir Ector is going to be able to start cleaning up my characters with really no punishment. I'm forced to play a Show Me More, which is really good for Josh. Empty-handed, gets to draw 3 cards. He now has his choice of which kind of HeiHei maker, if you will, he's going to play. And of course, he's going to pick the Pluto because the Pluto is really impactful. That 2-drop HeiHei says that I can't ready an item at the start of my turn, so that's going to stop me from gaining that 1 extra lore from the Inkcaster. I think my math said that 1 lore was very important for me to be able to gain there. So Josh is now looking at what he wants to do. So with the Pluto out, he gains lore from Sir Ector for challenging and banishing a character, which he's going to do there. And since the HeiHei is a double ink character, he also gets 2 lore from doing that. So the Sir Ector has 1 damage on him, I believe, or should, and I'm going to play a They Never Came Back. So he won't get to ready those characters, and again, I'm going to try to empty out my hand as best as possible because I have to try to run to that finish line. So I'm at 14. Josh is at the point where he's going to be able to start getting kind of a commanding lead. I see a Vincenzo in his hand. He's got to get rid of a Curse Merfolk. I believe, I think I have exactly game on board, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So if I boost the Flynn, I get to 21. If I ready the Inkcaster, I get to 21. So he really needs to get rid of at least 2 lore on the board and to be able to kind of like leave me at 19, which I mean, he's not going to want to leave me at 19, but looking at this deck can gain lore fast. So he is going to play Vincenzo. He gets to blow up an item because of Pluto, which of course he chooses my Inkcaster. And then he's going to put 3 damage on something. So he's going to get rid of something that quests for 2. And this was kind of a really important one for him to try to figure out, because if I boost the Flynn now punches for 3, which would mean that I can trade back with some of his characters. So he gets rid of the Flynn, and then he's going to challenge in with some of his characters there. The Pluto does not gain lore for himself when he banishes a character. That was what I was kind of clarifying right there. So Josh is at 9, I'm at 14. I have lost control here. I'm gonna do Show Me More, which is really good for Josh because it means that he gets really big cards in his hand. I play Scrooge McDuck, and I'm just kind of trying to figure out how close I can get. I'm gonna quest there. It was gonna put me up to 17, but looking at Josh's board, Josh is gonna win. Right there, we can tell that. He'll be able to, he plays a second Pluto, which is gonna like really make the game a lot quicker. Banishing a Diablo now means that he's going to gain 4 lore because he's got 2 Plutos out there. He's going to banish a Cursed Merfolk, so 4 more lore because of the 2 Plutos, and he gets to kind of choose how he quests out there. So you can see how HeiHei, even though it is a big kind of later game deck, can take on aggro if it takes the right approach about playing the early turn characters and getting those Plutos out. Those Plutos are so important. So that was a quick best of 3. It is nice that we at least went to 3. When we were originally playtesting these decks, something happened to my footage, my computer ran out of space, and it didn't take my original ones, but like we played this batch so many times that it became very clear that when the HeiHei players shifted their play strategy, they were able to win the game and clean up pretty nicely. Again, really relying on those early HeiHeis to challenge and to get rid of our opponent's characters like the Cursed Merfolk or, any of those guys. And also really leaning on that Pluto to be able to get rid of those items. You can still really push for the HeiHei combo. Just don't skip your don't skip that character drop, hoping to get that 1 extra ink because you need the characters to challenge aggro. So that is kind of the basics with this. Tinkerbell, Game Changer, awesome against this list. Pluto, Game Changer, awesome against this list. And that is kind of what you want to push for. So far, HeiHei has been able to take on all of our opponent's stuff. I will say that it definitely can get bricked. So if you've played this and you've got and you've been bricked by it, you're not alone. I have a video that I'm going to do up on this where I really get into math and statistical probability, and I have a spreadsheet for it and everything. I'm not going to do that today because that feels like a math video feels like its own video on its own, but there are ways to up our percentages of our chances to be able to get our HeiHei combo, and I'll go into that in a future video. So if you like math and spreadsheets, check that out later. If you don't like math and spreadsheets, I'll have pretty images for you if you want to see like the percentages or pie charts for getting HeiHeis. But where I'll leave it today is HeiHei so far is kind of the king of the chicken coop. He's been able to take on all the big players, and he has been able to crush it.